Welcome to the Legacy Leaders Podcast. Are you doing the best for your client to help them create their legacy? Are you creating a plan that goes far beyond finances to help people ensure that it becomes the driving force behind all decisions? On this podcast, hosts Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller will help you with growing your practice and your clients' peace of mind. Together, they bring the best and brightest minds to share with you how to help your clients develop their best legacy. And now, here are your hosts, Katie Beth and Stan.
Welcome back to the Legacy Leaders Podcast with your hosts, Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand. Our guest today is the co-founder and CEO of Wethos, Rachel Renock. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So before we dive right in, Rachel, I was kind of hoping you might take just a few minutes and tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how you got started in this industry and really what led you up to the decision to kind of branch out on your own and found this company.
Yeah, for sure. So a little background on me. So I actually went to art school. I used to be an art director. I used to work in advertising in New York. So I shot a lot of commercials. I did a lot of social and digital campaigns for big brands like CoverGirl. I worked on the Hershey's account. And I actually met my now co-founder, Claire, at a big agency in New York. And Claire was more on the account side of the business. So she was doing a lot of the client management, a lot of the, scoping, the budgeting. Unfortunately for her, she was seeing, how much we were charging clients and how much we were all getting paid. And a couple of years ago, we left to start our own freelance studio, for lack of a better term, honestly. And we left really for two reasons. The first was because we wanted to do more meaningful work. So we just wanted to have more control over the types of projects we were doing. And the second reason was because, the old school sort of agency model of building a big traditional firm. And I think that this also translates to like big law firms, big accounting firms, big consultancies. It's kind of broken. And it's broken because at the end of the day, with a service-based business, like people provide those services, not a giant 9-floor building in New York. For the creative field, at least, technology has come so far that you can now shoot really high quality video, like just on your iPhone. So you don't need a lot of that big, expensive sort of production value that you used to. And so we went off on our own because we felt, and we were seeing us like the big agency basically like lose accounts to smaller shops that were more nimble, that were faster, that were cheaper, and that were using, frankly, like a lot of the similar talent to the big agencies. So we ended up leaving, we started our own freelance business, and that business grew really fast. We did like 1.4 million in revenue in about 18 months. That's when Claire and I found out how hard it was to scale a service-based business. And so we ended up building out sort of our own internal operating system because a service-based business in particular is really challenging to scale. On the sales side, you're selling something that hasn't quite happened yet. So you're an estimate by the nature of it. And then on the invoicing side, you're billing for services that have already happened. So now I'm billing looking back, and I basically don't really know if I'm making or losing money sometimes until it's too late to do anything about it. And so I think like those challenges, we felt that deeply. And then as you really start to grow into a smaller shop with more people, the financial and operational complexities just compound. How much should we charge? Who should get what? How much money are we really making? So I think for us, like a lot of those challenges we heard from our friends who were in freelance. And when the pandemic hit, we raised some venture capital money and we decided to basically consumerize that platform for release, which is what Wethos is now. So Wethos, just as a quick primer, is an end-to-end platform. Basically, we make it really easy to start and scale your independent business. So our platform helps to guide you on everything from pricing, putting scopes of work together, proposals, all the way through to managing your payments. And then if you are collaborating with other people, sending peer-to-peer payments to those collaborators. And that's really our end goal in terms of helping people just better start and scale these types of businesses. Our goal is really to be the Shopify for this market, which our entrepreneurs just don't have yet.
Right. I love that. So my next question was going to be for you to tell us a little bit about Wethos. And so I thank you for doing that for our listeners that may not have heard anything about it. Who would you say with this platform your target audience would be? Who is this great for?
Yeah, so our core target audience are full-time freelancers. They're usually 1 to 3 years in business. They're probably earning somewhere between like 40 and 90K a year. And they are usually in the creative and marketing field. That would be like definitely the main person that tends to come to us. That said, we service about 80,000 businesses on the platform right now. And those businesses span from creative and marketing to dev shops. We're seeing a lot more development, IT type of shops. And then also accountants, lawyers, like people who are independent running their own businesses in those fields. We're seeing a lot more of those types of consultants and other like highly skilled professionals come onto the platform. People who are realizing if I go off on my own and I do it right, I can actually make more than what I was making. And I think that's a really interesting trend that we're seeing.
Absolutely. Stan, I know you're full of questions. What do you have for Rachel?
Yeah, again, I have more questions I'm sure that we have time for because this is incredibly fascinating what you're doing. So let me ask you two questions. One's really personal to me because I have an estate planning law firm, not a big law firm, but we're in the process of scaling. So if I were your client, or if I were in a meeting with you, exploring with you whether or not we could have a productive business relationship, what would you say to me what services, what value would you be able to bring to me that would attract my interest?
Yeah, I think on the scaling side of the business, it really comes down to reducing profitability and reducing complexity and better understanding your profitability. With a service-based business, there's a lot of ways to structure it financially. You can bill by the hour, you can bill flat rates, and there's also a lot of ways operationally to scale up. You can hire contractors, you can hire full-time people, and how you price and then how you actually bill and manage your resources and operate are super, super closely tied together. So our whole goal with the platform is to help reduce the complexities of bringing more people into the fold. How much should I pay them? Releasing those payments, making sure they're on time, and really helping with the financial and profitability management of then scaling that service-based business as things just become a lot more complicated for you, for that kind of size.
Okay, so what's the time horizon of a relationship? I mean, you meet, you talk, you come up with a plan. What do the deliverables look like? Is there an ongoing relationship after you've completed the initial phase? What's it look like?
Yeah, so the software itself is fully self-onboarded. So you can we don't really do like a traditional sales cycle. You can come onto the platform, create an account, add your branding under your own brand, and then you can even start inviting contractors that you pay out. You can get a bank account set up in there. You can start processing payments, start sending invoices. So really it's about like helping to guide and onboard users to the software itself. And then we have a lot of hands-on customer service. That's one of the things that the most that people really like is people can get a hold of us. And we're always happy on the phone to answer questions, to show other features. But for the most part, it takes literally less than 10 minutes to get set up. You could send a proposal, a fully built out proposal for $30,000, $40,000, a big project, truly in less than 10 minutes.
Well, most of the people listening to this podcast right now are financial advisors. We have some estate planning attorneys, but I would say most of the people listening now are financial advisors. What would you say would be the distinctive value that you could bring to them? And when I say financial advisors, they're not with big wirehouses. For the most part, they have their own operations. They're entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think, for every independent that I talk to, what comes to the surface a lot of the time is that a lot of folks are using like guesswork to run their business a lot of the time. And when I say guesswork, I mean, they're making guesses on the financial side of things. The financial advisors may not have this big of a problem, but I think the complexity actually comes from like a lack of good data. So if you're sending or using a software to create proposals, and then maybe you're invoicing in like a QuickBooks and you don't have a feedback loop between those things, again, I think it can be really hard to just understand like how much should I really be charging? Am I profitable? How much am I projected to earn this year based on my pipeline? Like there are just more things to take into consideration. So I think for us, it's really about that end-to-end management. Track your cash from proposal all the way through to payment. And we're not here to help you with productivity. That is part of it because the software makes you more efficient. Really, we're helping you optimize towards profitability. And so if you're running a small independent business and you're not looking to necessarily like track your time all the time and try to do a more traditional path, but really you're trying to optimize for like, how do I make the most money, with expending the least energy effectively? Like that's our goal. We want to help you become way more profitable, and make way more money than you are today. That's the whole goal.
And so you've developed the core of your offering is this software platform.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so how do you charge for this?
Yep. So we make money in two ways. One is through subscription. So there's a free tier, and then there is a Wethos Pro tier for $15 a month. We're also going to be rolling out later this year a Teams tier, which is really exciting. That'll be like peer-to-peer payments, subcontracts, like all the complexity of trying to scale. So we make money mostly through subscription, and then we also make some money on transaction revenue. So payment processing, we only charge 1% to process ACH, and but we make money underneath that basically. So a little bit on the payment processing side, but mainly on subscription.
Okay. Interesting.
Very, very
Very
interesting.
interesting.
Okay. To change gears just a little bit to talk about just your background, coming from the advertising background that you came from, tell us just a little bit about what wisdom and experiences do you draw from that really kind of guided you into creating this platform? Was there a
Yeah.
moment when you were like, I'm so sick of the way X works and I can do better? What was that
Yeah.
like?
Yeah, totally. So when I left my the big agency world, it was for that exact reason, which was like, I can do this better. I can operate more efficiently without the bloat. I have the equipment. I've got the professional network. Like I can go off on my own and do this better. So that's always been the thing that has like driven me to whatever that next stage is. When I got into the freelance business, again, I had that feeling like I could do this better. Like there must be a better way to do this, a better system out there. And the challenge I had with the products available to me at that time, like software wise, is that the vast majority of products available to freelancers are catered towards a business of one. And as somebody who's been in the space for years, I know for a fact that that's kind of a myth, and that there's a lot of people out there who are three freelancers under a trench coat, operating as like a larger entity. And so I think like the lack of ability to scale, like the lack of like a multiplayer mode on those software platforms, it just wasn't, the software wasn't enough to help us actually streamline the complexities of our business. So I felt like there's got to be a better system here. There's got to be a better way. That's where we designed really like that like framework for operating their flat rates basically. And essentially we just have this big database of services. Each service has a title, a description, a price point, and a role associated with it. And we have thousands of those services across dozens of roles. And then those services are the building blocks to proposals, to invoices, to payments, to everything. So we can basically track through that whole project lifecycle, like end to end, how that service may have changed. So an example of that could be audit your QuickBooks account. Maybe it's like one individual service within a larger proposal or a scope of work. We can see like you priced that service here at this, then you invoiced for that. And then if you hired a subcontractor to maybe deliver that, you paid the subcontractor this is your margin on that one individual service. Also, this is your margin on the project and their margin on the business. So it sort of extrapolates from there. So I had that feeling of like, as a designer myself, I was like, a great user experience can fix this. And a great user experience has to start with a better system underneath it. If we had just went with like the traditional kind of hourly rates and hourly billing, it wouldn't actually fix the complexity problem, because a lot of these issues are tied to like how you do your financial accounting. It's not just how you are, operating. So anyway, that is what pushed me into like software. And then from there, we essentially realized, very similar to the Shopify story, we think we can have a much larger impact if more people can use the software than just with our one individual studio alone. And so how do you distribute the software to people so that they can then start to form, we call them virtual studios on the platform, and be able to really leverage that and use it. And I think that was one of like the craziest and best decisions I've ever made, because we essentially reached a point where we wound down the service-based side of our business that was generating a lot of revenue, wound up the software, didn't make money for a while, which is scary. And then, had to kind of reach that inflection point, which the software's only really been alive for like 2 years. So I think it's been this like urge I have as a creative problem solver, I think, to find a better way and to analyze how existing systems work and not be afraid to ask why, and could it be different? Could it be better, and not just default to what the standard is?
That's great. Great answer. And as I was looking through Wethos and just kind of exploring online, the word that kept coming to mind was clarity. I feel like it is something, if you are an independent business owner, it is something that can really make those connections and provide a lot of clarity as far as, like you said, what is our profit margin? A lot of it's hard to know, especially if you are in a business where you have multiple individuals, as you said, what was it you said, hiding under the same trench coat. It can make it very, very difficult to really know where you are. We're bringing in money, but cash flow, it doesn't always equal out what we're spending. And so I love the clarity that the platform really provides, in just a very easy, simple, you don't have to be, a technological genius to figure it out, simplicity and clarity. So I very much appreciate that about our platform. And for our listeners, I really encourage you to go and check it out. We're going to link it for you, and I'll talk a bit more about that here in just a minute when we close out. But I also wanted to take the opportunity to tell you that Rachel very kindly is going to give you guys a promo code for the pro version of Wethos. And so if you're interested in checking it out, we will link that for you in the show notes here at the end of the show. You guys can check it out and go give it a test drive and see what it can do for your business for sure. Stan, do you have any other questions for Rachel? I know you do, but any other questions that we can squeeze in the next 2 minutes?
No, so if in 2 minutes, yeah. So let me distill this. So if I understand it, is it an oversimplification to say that you guys are working to become the Shopify for the service sector?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that helps me. That puts some legs on it. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I'll just mention too, so with Wethos Pro, you'll get access to a bunch of extra things, data in particular. So you'll get access to our pricing recommendations, which are based on how tens of thousands of other independents are pricing their services. In no other industry do we shoot in the dark when we're trying to sell our business, right? Like you sell books online or t-shirts online, like how much t-shirts sell for. This is one of the biggest things that puts service-based businesses at a disadvantage, is a lack of transparency of like, what are we charging for these things? And so I think that's a huge part of the advantage of Pro, which is the transparency into how are other people billing their clients for these things. And then there's a slew of other really great features that you can leverage around your own just business, streamlining your business, additional projects, data, analytics, the ability to create your own templates and your own libraries and things like that. But to your point about the clarity, that's the biggest thing. Like we really want to take the guesswork out. It's not feasible to run a business this way, and it's not your fault, basically. Like if you're a freelancer out there, independent out there, and you're feeling like you're running based on guesswork, it's because it's complicated. So that's really what we aim to solve for, is to take people out of that, disadvantage. And really, just to leave you with this stat, today, 95% of freelancers in the US do not break 6 figures. And by 2027, over half the US workforce will be freelance. Those are not viable, lucrative careers that you can really, build a family on, take care of them. We need to get more people, more independents able to cross that threshold. And the big way to do that is data, transparency, resources, the tools to team up, the ability to help them make more money, become more profitable. These are businesses, they're entrepreneurs for sure. And I think it's time to make that sort of mental shift for the whole industry. It's gotta be time.
Fantastic. And what a legacy, certainly, that you are building through the work that you do. Go ahead, Stan.
No, I just said what a unique, compelling vision. You guys are amazing. Where are you going with this? Is this going to be an IPO one of these days?
I sure hope so. I always joke, I'm like, I'll crawl to NASDAQ if I have to. I'm like, I don't care how long it takes.
All right.
Yeah, I really hope so. I think what we're doing can really change the trajectory of the next generation of entrepreneurs. What I see is truly the next generation.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Stan.
No, I love it. This is great.
I do too. It was fantastic. So Thank you to all of our listeners for joining us today. This has been the Legacy Leaders Podcast with your hosts, Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand. Our guest today has been Rachel Renock. And for more information about Rachel and the work that she does, you can visit wethos.co. That's wethos.co. Rachel, thank you again so much for joining us. We are fascinated to look more into Wethos, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon and watching the company grow.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Legacy Leaders Podcast with Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller. For more information on them and the show, please visit pinnaclelegacylaw.com. If you like what you've learned today, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.